The sky turned bright on a normal Tuesday afternoon. People stopped and looked up as strange lights appeared above major cities worldwide. The news channels all showed the same thing: 7 enormous silver ships hovering silently over Earth. The internet exploded with pictures, theories, and panic. "This is not a drill," said the emergency broadcast system. "Unknown vessels have entered Earth's atmosphere. Please remain calm and await further instructions." In Washington, D.C., Jack Miller watched the ships through the window of his apartment. As a former Marine who now worked security for diplomatic meetings, he felt both fear and curiosity. His phone rang. It was his boss at the State Department. "Miller, get to headquarters now. They want to talk to us." 3 days later, Jack stood in a heavily guarded room at the United Nations. The aliens called themselves the Alvari, and their leader was Ambassador Zix Vorn, a tall, thin being with pale blue skin and 4 arms. The ambassador spoke perfect English through a small device on his chest. "We come in peace from the Galactic Council, a family of 37 advanced civilizations," Zix Vorn told the room full of world leaders. "Your planet has finally developed enough technology for us to make contact. We wish to welcome humanity into our galactic community." The room burst into applause. Humanity had dreamed of this moment for centuries. Jack, however, felt uneasy. He watched the aliens carefully from his position near the wall. Something felt wrong. The Alvari showed amazing technology, clean energy, sources, medical devices that could cure cancer, and communication systems that worked instantly across any distance. But Jack noticed they never fully explained how anything worked. They always held something back. "We must proceed slowly," Zix Vorn said when asked about their faster-than-light travel. "Your species is not yet ready for all our knowledge." Earth's governments quickly signed agreements with the Alvari. Trade deals, cultural exchange programs, and technology sharing started within weeks. Thousands of Alvari came to Earth as advisors, while selected humans were invited to visit the Alvari ships. Jack wrote reports about his concerns, but no one listened. Why would they? The Alvari brought gifts and knowledge. Global conflict stopped as countries worked together with the aliens. The economy boomed with new alien technology. One night, Jack was assigned to guard a late meeting between U.S. officials and Alvari representatives. He went to get coffee and took a wrong turn in the building. Through a partially open door, he heard Zix Vorn speaking to other Alvari in their own language. Jack's translator device picked up the conversation. "The humans suspect nothing," Zix Vorn said. "Our scans show this planet has the richest biodiversity in the sector. The mineral deposits alone will fuel our expansion for decades." "And the humans?" another voice asked. "An unnecessary complication. The Council need not know. We will proceed with removal once our position is secure." Jack froze. He carefully backed away and returned to his post, mind racing. He had to get proof. Over the next week, he secretly planted small recording devices in meeting rooms used by the Alvari. The evidence grew. The Alvari were not representatives of any galactic council. They were scouts for an invasion force. Their cultural exchange was actually gathering intelligence about Earth's defenses and resources. Jack compiled everything onto a secure drive and prepared to present it to his superiors. He was too late. Exactly 6 months after first contact, Jack woke to air raid sirens. He looked out his window and saw hundreds of new Alvari ships filling the sky, much larger than the first 7. His television showed chaos as massive energy weapons hit military bases around the world. Phone networks went down. The internet cut out. Jack grabbed his emergency bag, the data drive with evidence, and ran for his car. As he drove through Washington, D.C., he saw Alvari ground troops emerging from landing craft. They were not the friendly diplomats humans had met. These soldiers wore black armor and carried weapons that reduced buildings to dust. The roads out of the city were jammed with panicked people. Military jets that challenged the Alvari ships were swatted from the sky like flies. Jack abandoned his car and continued on foot, heading for the forests of Virginia where he had a small cabin. 3 days later, battered and exhausted, Jack reached his hideout. He managed to power up an old radio and listened as Ambassador Zix Vorn Address the conquered Earth. People of Earth, the transition period has ended. Your planet is now a protected resource world under proper Alvari management, the familiar voice announced. Resistance is pointless and will result in harsher treatment. Cooperate and you may serve useful functions in the new order. What followed were instructions for humans to register at processing centers in each major city. Those with useful skills would be allowed to work under Alvari supervision. The rest would be relocated to designated living zones. Jack knew what that meant. He had seen the files on the data drive, detailed plans for human population reduction. The Alvari needed Earth's resources, not its people. For 2 weeks, Jack stayed hidden, watching from the hills as Alvari ships established bases and began extracting resources. Earth's militaries had been crushed in days. World governments surrendered, one by one, but not everyone accepted defeat. One night, as Jack was scanning radio frequencies, he picked up a coded message. After working on it for hours, he deciphered the basics. Resistance groups were forming. They needed people with knowledge of the Alvari. Jack packed his few belongings and the precious data drive. The mountains to the west would give him cover. He would find these resistance fighters and share what he knew. As he looked back at the burning remains of Washington in the distance, Jack made a promise. This was not the end. It was just the beginning of humanity's fight back. The Alvari thought. They had won. They had no idea what humans were capable of when pushed too far. 2 years passed since the Alvari took over Earth. The aliens now controlled all major cities and resource-rich areas. They set up huge mining operations and started collecting plant and animal samples from across the planet. Humans who surrendered lived in crowded camps, working as labor for the aliens. Those who resisted had to hide in remote places, mountains, deep forests, and abandoned underground facilities. Jack Miller had spent these 2 years moving between resistance groups, sharing what he knew about the Alvari. He became known as a valuable scout and fighter. His current mission was dangerous: travel to the Rocky Mountains to find a scientist rumored to be doing important work against the aliens. The journey took weeks. Jack avoided Alvari patrols by traveling at night and hiding during the day. He passed through destroyed towns and saw massive Alvari harvesting machines stripping entire forests bare. The sight strengthened his resolve to fight back. Finally, Jack reached the coordinates he'd been given, a seemingly empty mountainside in Colorado. He waited for the signal, and right on schedule, 3 quick flashes of light came from behind. Some rocks Jack approached carefully. "Password?" asked a voice from the darkness. "Phoenix Rising," Jack replied. 2 armed guards appeared and led him through a hidden entrance in the rocks. Inside was an old mining tunnel that went deep into the mountain. After walking for 15 minutes, they reached a large underground space filled with people working on equipment. Some parts Jack recognized as Alvari technology. A woman in her 40s approached him. She had short gray hair and intense blue eyes that studied him carefully. "So you're Jack Miller, I'm Susan Grant. They say you have information that might help us," she said. "And they say you're building something that might save us all," Jack replied. Susan nodded and led him deeper into the facility. "Before the invasion, I worked on experimental propulsion systems for NASA. Now I lead this research cell. We've been collecting and studying Alvari technology from crashed ships and damaged equipment." She showed Jack their main workshop area, where about 50 people were working on various pieces of alien technology. In the center stood a partially built craft about the size of a small bus. "Is that what I think it is?" Jack asked. "Yes. We're building our own ship using Alvari technology. It's slow work. We have to figure out how everything works by trial and error. But we're making progress." Jack handed Susan the data drive he'd protected for 2 years. "This might help. It has files I stole from the Alvari before the invasion. Technical diagrams, communication protocols, and their plans for Earth." Susan's eyes widened as she looked through the files on a computer. "This is incredible. This could save us months of work." That night, Jack told the resistance group everything he knew about the Alvari. In return, they shared their discoveries. The most useful came from captured Alvari communication devices, which had allowed them to listen in on alien transmissions. "We've learned something interesting," Susan said. The Alvari keep referring to a Galactic Council in their messages, and they seem worried about hiding something from this council. During the invasion, they mentioned a council, Jack remembered. They presented themselves as representatives when they first arrived. Susan nodded. We think this council might be real, but the Alvari aren't actually representing it here. We believe they're acting on their own, taking Earth for themselves. The next morning, Jack joined a resistance mission to capture an Alvari officer. Their target was a small outpost that monitored a nearby mining operation. The plan was simple: disable their communications, grab an officer, and get out before reinforcements arrived. The mission went smoothly until their escape. An Alvari patrol spotted them and opened fire. 2 resistance fighters fell, but Jack and the others made it back to the hideout with their prisoner, a high-ranking Alvari officer. Getting information from the alien wasn't easy. The Alvari spoke through translation devices, but the officer refused to talk at first. After 3 days of questioning, hunger and isolation wore him down. Why did you hide your invasion from the Galactic Council? Susan asked directly. The Alvaris, 4 eyes blinked rapidly, and what they'd learned was a sign of surprise. How do you know about the Council? Answer the question, Jack demanded. Finally, the Alvari spoke. The Council has laws. Taking planets with intelligent life is forbidden without approval. But Earth has resources we need, and humans are primitive. We decided not to inform the Council until the planet was secured and humans were managed. What would the Council do if they knew? Susan pressed. The alien hesitated. If a species can reach the Council themselves, they qualify for protection. The Alvari who acted without approval would be punished severely. Jack and Susan exchanged looks. This changed everything. That night, the resistance leaders gathered to discuss this new information. If we could somehow contact this Galactic Council and tell them what the Alvari are doing here, we might get help, Jack suggested. And how exactly would we do that? Someone asked. We can barely leave our hideouts without getting killed, alone leave the planet. Susan stood up. We build a ship, she said simply. We've been working on understanding Alvari technology for months. With the information Jack brought and what we learned from the officer, we might be able to build a working spacecraft. Even if we could, another leader argued, the Alvari control Earth's orbit. We'd never get past them. Maybe we would if they were distracted, Jack said. If resistance groups worldwide launched coordinated attacks, it might create enough chaos for a small ship to slip through. The plan was crazy, but it gave them hope. Over the next month, Susan's team worked day and night. They converted an abandoned missile silo into a makeshift shipyard. The half-built ship was moved there, and work continued at a frantic pace. Meanwhile, Jack traveled again, this time to connect with other resistance groups and plan the worldwide distraction they would need. The Alvari were getting more aggressive and hunting down humans who refused to surrender, making his journeys increasingly dangerous. 6 months later, Jack returned to the mountain base. When he entered the silo, he couldn't believe what he saw. A sleek silvery ship stood ready for launch. It wasn't pretty. Parts clearly came from different Alvari technologies patched together. But it looked functional. We've tested the engines, Susan told him proudly. They work. We reverse engineered. They're faster than light drive too. If we're right, this ship can take us beyond our solar system. Does it have a name? Jack asked. Susan smiled. We call it the Defiance. Jack nodded. It was perfect. The global attack is set for 3 days from now. Every resistance cell will hit Alvari targets simultaneously. That's our window to launch. Susan's expression grew serious. You know this is a one-way trip, right? Even if we reach this council, we may never make it back to Earth. If it means saving humanity, it's worth the risk, Jack replied. Now who's going to fly this thing? The day of the launch arrived. All across Earth, resistance groups prepared for coordinated attacks on Alvari installations. Inside the missile silo, the crew of the Defiance made final checks. They had chosen 3 people for the dangerous mission: Jack as security chief, Susan as engineer, and Commander Alan West, a former Navy submarine captain. Why a submarine captain? Jack had asked when Susan suggested West. Because submarines and spaceships have something in common, Susan explained. Both operate in hostile environments where you can't get help and must manage limited resources. Alan survived 2 years hiding his sub from Alvari patrols, keeping his crew alive. That's exactly what we need. Commander West was a tall man with a weathered face and steady hands. He studied the ship's controls carefully. Susan had designed them to be similar to Earth technology where possible. It's not pretty, but it'll fly, West said after examining the Defiance. We have 1 shot at this. Let's make it count. At exactly noon, resistance fighters across the globe launched their attacks. They hit mining operations, patrol bases, and communication towers. It wasn't enough to defeat the Alvari, but it caused confusion. Most importantly, it drew attention away from the missile silo in Colorado. That's our signal, West said, watching reports come in on their communication system. Everyone strap in. This launch won't be smooth. The top of the silo opened slowly. Above them, they could already see Alvari patrol ships responding to attacks in other areas. Now or never, Susan said, activating the main engine. The Defiance rose from the silo with a roar. Its engines, built from salvaged Alvari technology, pushed against Earth's gravity with tremendous force. The 3 humans were pressed into their seats as the ship climbed higher and higher. Alvari ship's changing course, Jack warned, watching the radar. They've spotted us. Too late, West said with satisfaction as the Defiance broke through the atmosphere into space. Susan, can you get us out of the solar system? Susan's fingers flew over the control panel. Activating FTL drive in 3, 2, 1. The stars around them seemed to stretch, and then with a flash, Earth disappeared behind them. The Defiance had just become humanity's first faster-than-light vessel. None of them had time to celebrate. Alarms blared throughout the ship. The drive is overheating, Susan called out, rushing to check systems. I need to shut it down. The ship dropped back to normal space with a shudder. Through the view screen, they saw an unfamiliar star system. Where are we? Jack asked. Susan checked their navigation system. About 12 light-years from Earth. The drive needs cooling before we can jump again. Can we find the Galactic Council? From here? West asked. According to Alvari data, Centrolis, the Council headquarters, is at the center of the galaxy, about 25,000 light-years away, Susan explained. We'll need multiple jumps and probably some help to find the exact location. They spent 2 days repairing the ship while hiding in the shadow of a large moon. The FTL drive had never been properly tested, and the strain of the first jump had damaged several systems. We need supplies, West declared after assessing their situation. Fuel, parts, maybe even food. The Alvari data mentions a trading post in a nearby system. The trading post orbited a red dwarf star. It was a massive space station with ships of various designs coming and going. None looked like Alvari vessels, which gave the crew hope. How do we approach? Jack asked. We don't have identification, codes, or even know the proper protocols. Honestly, West decided, we're a new species with a cobbled-together ship. No one will believe a lie anyway. They cautiously piloted the Defiance toward the station. Almost immediately, they received a transmission in multiple languages. Eventually, it cycled to English, which surprised them. Unidentified vessel, state, your purpose and origin, the voice demanded. This is Commander Alan West of Earth. We seek supplies and information. We are new to space travel. There was a long pause. Then, proceed to docking bay 7. Prepare for inspection. The docking bay was filled with strange beings, some with multiple limbs, others resembling nothing the humans had ever seen. Security guards with weapons surrounded the Defiance as they exited. A small being with 6 legs and green skin approached them. You claim to be from Earth? Impossible. Earth is under Alvari quarantine. No ships have emerged from that system. Jack stepped forward. The Alvari invaded our planet. We escaped to seek help from the Galactic Council. Murmurs spread through the crowd. The small green alien studied them carefully. I am Station Manager Clicks. If what you say is true, this is deeply troubling. The Council forbids conquest of developing worlds. Clicks led them to a private room where they showed their evidence. Jack's data drive, recordings from the Alvari officer's interrogation, and images of the invasion. This is a serious violation of Council law, Clicks confirmed. But the Alvari Federation is powerful. They will deny everything. We need to reach Centrolis, Susan explained. Show the Council directly. Your ship will never make it, Clicks said, examining images of the Defiance. It's remarkable you got this far in such a vessel. Your species must be quite resourceful. While they discussed options, a tall figure entered the room. He had blue fur and 4 arms, but his features were softer than an Alvarese. I couldn't help overhearing, the newcomer said. I'm Renar, a Centaurian merchant. I make regular runs to systems near Centrolis. Jack tensed, suspicious of the alien's interest. Renar noticed his reaction and laughed. Relax, human. Not all of us are fond of the Alvari. They've been pushing boundaries for decades, taking more than their share of resources and bullying smaller worlds. Would you help us reach the Council? Susan asked. Renar stroked his fur thoughtfully. It's a long journey. Dangerous, too, especially if the Alvari realize what you're doing. But I know people who oppose their expansion. Underground networks that might help. They spent 3 days at the trading post. Renar introduced them to contacts who provided better parts for the Defiance and updated star charts showing routes to Centrolis. Susan worked constantly, improving their ship systems with the new components. Why are you helping us? Jack asked Renar one evening. The Centaurian's expression grew serious. Because I've seen what happens to worlds the Alvari target. They strip them bare and move on. The Council talks about balance and cooperation. But powerful members like the Alvari often ignore rules. Someone needs to expose them. When they departed, the Defiance was stronger than before. Renar provided coordinates for friendly stops along their journey where they could rest and refuel. The journey will take at least 2 months, he warned them. Be careful who you trust. The Alvari have spies everywhere. The humans thanked him and set course for Centrolis. As they jumped to FTL again, their improved drive performed much better. Their journey through the stars was filled with wonders and dangers. They saw massive space structures, planets with rings of all colors and nebulae that glowed like jewels. But they also had to hide from Alvari patrols multiple times. At each friendly stop, they gathered more allies disgusted by Alvari tactics. Their story spread. A new species whose world had been illegally conquered, making a desperate journey to seek justice. As they approached Centrolis, Susan detected a problem. Alvari warships ahead. They've established a blockade. They must know we're coming, Jack said grimly. Someone betrayed us. Wes studied the tactical display. 8 ships, too many to fight, too spread out to slip past. Maybe not, Susan said, eyes lighting up with an idea. The Alvari energy weapons all operate on the same frequency. What if we modified our shields to absorb that energy instead of deflecting it? Can you do that? West asked. Susan's hands were already moving over the controls. Give me 2 hours. The Alvari ship spotted them soon after. As expected, they demanded surrender. When the humans refused, the alien vessels opened fire, but instead of exploding, the Defiance's shields glowed brighter with each hit. Susan had turned their weakness into strength. Now, she shouted. West pushed the engines to maximum. The Defiance shot forward, trailing energy like a comet. The surprised Alvari ships couldn't react fast enough. They broke through the blockade and approached Centrolis, a massive ring-shaped space station circling a blue star. Though the ship was damaged from the strain, they had made it. We've come a long way, Jack said, looking at the enormous station growing larger in their view screen. For Earth, Susan replied. For all of us, West agreed as he opened a communication channel to Centrolis. The Defiance approached Centrolis with its engines struggling after the battle. The enormous ring-shaped station grew larger in their view screen, its surface covered with lights and structures. Ships of countless designs moved around it like bees around a hive. "Attention unknown vessel," came a transmission. "You have entered Galactic Council space. Identify yourselves immediately." West activated their communication system. "This is Commander Allen West of Earth. We request emergency landing and an audience with the Council. We have evidence of serious violations of Council law by the Alvari Federation." There was a long pause before the reply came. "Proceed to Emergency Docking Bay 17. Security forces will meet you." As they approached the docking bay, Jack noticed several official-looking vessels moving to escort them. "Those don't look like Alvari ships," he noted with relief. "They're Council security," Susan said, reading from the Alvari data files. "They're supposed to be neutral, not controlled by any single species. The Defiance landed roughly. It's damaged. Systems finally giving out as they touched down." The docking bay doors closed behind them, and atmosphere filled the chamber. A team of security officers surrounded their ship, weapons ready. When the three humans emerged with their hands raised, the alien seemed surprised. "What species are you?" asked the lead officer, a tall being with smooth orange skin. "Human," Jack replied. "From Earth." "Impossible," the officer said. "Earth is under Alvari protection. They report it as a primitive world still developing spaceflight technology." "That's a lie," Susan explained. "The Alvari invaded Earth 2 years ago. They're stripping our planet of resources and systematically removing our people. We escaped to bring evidence to the Council. The security team took them to a holding area while higher authorities were notified. Hours passed before a new group of aliens arrived. Their leader was tall with crystalline features that shifted colors as they moved. "I am Council Investigator Zrinta," the alien said. "Your claims are extremely serious. The conquest of pre-spaceflight civilizations is forbidden by our oldest laws." Jack presented their evidence, the data drive, recordings from the captured officer, and images of Earth under occupation. Zrinta's colors darkened as they reviewed the material. This must go before the full Council immediately, they decided. But be warned, the Alvari will resist these accusations strongly. The next day, the humans were brought to the Council chamber, an enormous circular room with seating for hundreds of different species. In the center was a raised platform where representatives could speak. The chamber buzzed with curious whispers as the three humans entered. "Many here have never seen your kind before," Zrinta explained. "News of your arrival has spread quickly." Jack was scanning the chamber when he froze. "There," he said quietly to Susan and West. "Second level, third section." They looked where he pointed and saw a familiar blue figure, Ambassador Zix Vorn, now wearing elaborate official robes. "High Commander Zix Vorn is the Alvari representative to the Council," Zrinta explained, following their gaze. "He claims to have never visited Earth personally." "That's a lie," Jack said through clenched teeth. "He led the first contact mission and announced the invasion himself." The Council session began with a chime that echoed through the chamber. A being made of what looked like flowing liquid metal took the central position. "I am High Counselor Neem, current leader of this assembly," they said, voice resonating without seeming to come from any specific spot. "We face unusual circumstances today. 3 beings claiming to be from Earth have brought serious accusations against the Alvari Federation." Zix Vorn immediately rose. "This is absurd. Earth is a protected developing world under our guidance. These creatures cannot be from Earth. They must be imposters created by our enemies to discredit us." Neem turned to the humans. "You may present your evidence." Jack stepped onto the central platform, nervous but determined. The data from his drive projected onto large screens visible to all Council members. He showed images of the invasion, recordings of Alvari commanders discussing human removal, and plans for stripping Earth's resources. "The Alvari came to our world pretending to be friends," Jack explained. "Then they invaded with a massive fleet. Millions of humans have died. Millions more are in work camps. We built a ship from captured Alvari technology to reach you and ask for help. The chamber erupted in debate. Some council members shouted questions, others expressed outrage, and a few defended the Alvari. Zix Vorn strode to the platform. These are clever fabrications. Even if these creatures are truly from Earth, they cannot have built a ship capable of reaching Centrolis. It's technologically impossible for their primitive species. We did build it, Susan countered, joining. Jack. Here are the designs and flight data from our ship, the Defiance. We reversed engineered Alvari technology. Another council member, a small being with multiple eyes, spoke up. If they built such a vessel by our laws, they qualify for full council protection as a spacefaring species. Zix Vorn's composure slipped. These animals do not deserve protection. Earth's resources are vital to Alvari interests. The chamber went silent at this outburst. Zix Vorn seemed to realize his mistake too late. High Counselor Neem's liquid metal form rippled. Investigator Zrinta, what do your preliminary findings show? Zrinta stepped forward. The evidence appears authentic, but there is more. High Counselor. Our investigation found encrypted Alvari records suggesting Earth is not their first victim. We've identified 7 other developing worlds they have secretly harvested, disguising the resources as coming from uninhabited systems. This revelation caused even greater uproar. Council members demanded immediate action. The Alvari Federation's actions represent the most serious violations of council law in centuries, Neem declared. We will conduct a full investigation into all alleged conquests. In the meantime, Earth is granted provisional council membership with immediate protection status. Zix Vorn's voice cut through the noise. The Alvari Federation rejects this ruling. You have no authority to interfere with our resource operations. The council has spoken, Neem replied firmly. Enforcement vessels will be dispatched to Earth. Immediately. Zix Vorn stormed from the chamber. Jack felt relief wash over him, but it was short-lived. Minutes later, alarms blared throughout Centrolis. A council security officer rushed into the chamber. High Counselor! The Alvari fleet has opened fire on Centrolis defense ships. They've launched a full attack on the station. The chamber dissolved into chaos as council members rushed to evacuate. Neem approached the humans. In 4,000 years of council history, no member has ever attacked Centrolis itself, they said, their metallic form rippling with what seemed like concern. We have defense systems, but they were designed to deter pirates and small threats, not a member's battle fleet. The Alvari know they're exposed, Wes said grimly. They're desperate. Jack turned to his companions. We need to contact Earth. The Resistance needs to know what's happening. Zrinta led them to a communication center where they could send a message to their allies on Earth. The transmission would take hours to reach human resistance groups, but it was their only option. The Council is preparing evacuation ships for non-combat personnel, Zrinta explained as Centrolis shuddered from a distant impact. You should join them. No, Jack said firmly. We came to save Earth. We're not running now. Susan was working on a nearby console, analyzing Centrolis defense systems. These are impressive but designed all wrong for fighting Alvari ships, she noted. We discovered something about their vessels during our resistance that might help. The 3 humans, huddled with council military advisors, sharing everything they knew about Alvari weaknesses. As they worked, reports came in of Alvari reinforcements heading toward Earth. Zix Vorn had ordered the complete destruction of human resistance to eliminate evidence of their crimes. We're out of time, Jack said. Earth needs more than just council intervention. They need a way to fight back now. Susan looked up from the console, her eyes bright with an idea. I think I know how we can do that, but it's going to be risky. Susan's plan was bold but brilliant. While Centrolis defenders fought the Alvari fleet, the humans sent an encrypted message to all resistance groups on Earth. The message contained technical specifications showing a critical weakness in Alvari ship design that Susan had discovered. Their central power cores were vulnerable to specific electromagnetic frequencies. If we can broadcast these frequencies globally, we might disable their ships, Susan explained to council engineers who helped strengthen the signal. Back on Earth, resistance fighters received the message. For 2 years, they had been adapting Alvari technology, including their global satellite network. Within hours, they began reprogramming these satellites to emit the specific frequencies Susan had identified. Meanwhile, on Centrolis, Jack and West worked with Council security to prepare for evacuation if the station's defenses failed. The Alvari attack grew more intense by the hour. High Commander Zixvorn demands Earth be surrendered to Alvari control, or he will destroy Centrolis, a Council messenger reported. Never, Jack responded firmly. Earth is fighting back. In orbit around Earth, the Alvari command fleet received orders from Zixvorn to crush all remaining human resistance once and for all. Their enormous ships descended toward Earth, weapons ready. They expected an easy victory over the primitive humans. What they found instead was a trap. As the Alvari fleet entered Earth's atmosphere, resistance leaders activated the modified satellite network. Suddenly, synchronized electromagnetic pulses at the exact frequency Susan had identified blanketed the planet. The effect was immediate and devastating. Alvari ships lost power. Their shields failed, weapon systems went offline, and many vessels began falling from the sky. Across Earth, humans watched as their invaders' mighty ships became helpless. The resistance didn't waste the opportunity. Using captured Alvari shuttlecraft modified with explosive payloads, they launched attacks on the disabled alien vessels. Smaller Alvari ships crashed into oceans and unpopulated areas. The massive command ship managed an emergency landing in the Australian outback, where waiting resistance fighters captured the crew. On the ground, Alvari troops suddenly found themselves cut off from orbital support and communication. Human military forces that had been hiding underground emerged to reclaim their planet. After 2 years of occupation, Earth fought back with everything they had. On Centrolis, the Council received reports of what was happening. Live feeds showed Alvari ships disabled and humans celebrating in cities around the world. The Council chamber was silent with shock. "This is unprecedented," High Counselor Neem said. "No species has ever defeated an Alvari invasion force, let alone one that had already established control." When Zixvorn learned what was happening on Earth, his attack on Centrolis faltered. The Alvari fleet began retreating as more Council defense ships arrived. 1 month later, Jack Miller stood again before the Galactic Council, but this time as Earth's official ambassador. Susan Grant had returned to Earth to lead the new Earth Defense Force integrating human innovation with alien technology. Commander West had been given command of Earth's first official starship. Humanity has proven itself not only capable of faster-than-light travel, but also resourceful enough to defend against advanced threats, Neem announced. Earth is confirmed as a full member of the Galactic Council. As Jack looked around at the hundreds of alien species watching him, he felt pride. Humans had not only survived the Alvari invasion, but had turned it into an opportunity to join the galactic community. The Council created new protocols for first contact situations based on Earth's experience. Several members sought technology, exchange programs with humans impressed by their ability to quickly adapt and improve existing designs. As for the Alvari, their civilization faced severe sanctions. Their defeat by a species they had dismissed as primitive became a cautionary tale throughout the galaxy. Never underestimate humanity's capacity for survival, adaptation, and ruthless counterattack when threatened.